6 or paragraph 88 of that affidavit, we analyze 94 constituencies where other positions other than the president got the highest vote. And even in Kiambu itself, in several constituencies, the voters gave more votes to the women representative than the president himself. And we have given the list in paragraph 88. Even in my learned friend's constituency, he got more votes. The governor was the most competitive seat. So it depends from one region to another. There are certain places, for example, where if you look at that page 36, Kibwezi East, the senator was the most competitive. If you look at Voi, the senator was the most competitive. If you look at Molo, the parliamentary seat was the most competitive. If you look at Rongo, the governor was the most competitive. So, my lord, as they say, all politics is local. That is what determined which was the most competitive. Lastly, but not the least, if you look at Istarehe, the woman representative was the most competitive seat in that election.
Mr. Nasir, if I understand the argument well, is that the votes cast, the total votes cast for the president were more than those cast for the governors, for example, for the women representative, for example. It's not a question of a president getting more than the governor or what?
We have done the total, my lord, yes. But, and I think IEBC, Mr. Somane, explained it very well. But even when you do that, it's not necessarily true, or the difference was very insignificant. My learned friend will explain that quickly. But my lord, finally, it's my submission, my lord, that the petitioners have not discharged the burden of proof. That burden, my lord, because it has not been discharged, at no point during this trial did that burden shift to the third respondent. But my lord, that notwithstanding, and out of abundant caution, that suspender and belt approach, my learned friend has taken you through each and every allegation they have made, not to prove, but to show, my lord, that all those allegations were false, whether it's in relation to an gazetted polling station, whether it is in relation to the disparity between the presidential and electoral offices, and, my lord, any other averments that's contained in the petition. So, my lords, it's the prayer of the third respondent that, in light of the failure on the part of the petitioners to discharge the burden of proof, this petition should be dismissed with cost. And I pray that it be satisfied for two counsel.
My lord, we will always spend just a few of our time. One is to answer, my lord Chief Justice. There is no legal obligation on any voter to vote in all the 6 elections. True enough, you are given 6 ballots. You are given 6 ballots, but there is no corresponding obligation that you must vote for all the 6. So you see in certain areas, and we have done a mathematical analysis, in certain areas you find almost a huge number of people voted for president and, say, senator, and for governor there was very little voting. And those are some peculiar habits of our voters. Yes. So in absence of a legal obligation, so there are some ballots really that do not count. My lords, There is an issue that was raised by Senior Counsel Mr. Orengo yesterday, Senator Orengo, about barcodes, that some documents don't have a barcode. I had not anticipated that in the written submissions. Allow me to answer it in these submissions because it wasn't in their written submissions, about absence of barcode in certain of the forms.
Mr. Ngata, just before you leave the question that voter is not obliged to vote for the 6 candidates.
Yes.
That is the position.
Sorry?
That will not be the position.
About a legal obligation.
A voter can vote for one candidate and not for the others. That's what you've told us.
I am meaning a compelling obligation that you must tick. You are given the 6 ballots. You are given a place to go and vote. And since there isn't a compelling force, that's what I meant.
You're saying the same thing?
Oh, very good. Thank you.
My question is,
Yes.
how are the other ballot papers accounted for? Because at the point of getting the ballot paper, a voter gets 6, correct?
Yes.
And they choose to vote for MCA and not for anybody else, right?
True.
So what is the name given to the other ballot papers? For the
Yes.
president, is it spoiled? Is it stray?
Yes.
Is it rejected? What is it?
I wanted to handle those two, or one of my colleagues to handle those two together. That's why I was explaining the point, the point of the barcode raised by Senator Orengo and the question by my Lord Chief Justice, and invite one of my colleagues, Mr. Masharia, to answer both within a relatively short period of time.
Thank you very much, my lords and my lady. I deal first with the question of the barcode that was raised. And the first... I deal first with the question of the barcode. The barcode was not an issue raised in the petition to begin with, but having been raised, this is the explanation. Number one, the format of the forms prescribed under the election general regulations does not require a barcode. The format of that particular form, that's number one. Secondly, that barcode, as we are made to understand, was limited to Form 34B. Thirdly, it was not in the prescribed requirements that the IEBC sent to the printer. It was an innovation originating from the printer themselves as surplusage. That's number three. Number four, the question was one, and this was dealt with at the scrutiny which I attended yesterday night. It was the question of using the wrong reader. So that if you used your phone, and everybody has some of these phones sometimes, you came up with a different result. That was the fourth response to that particular issue of the barcode. And so the issue raised here is really a red herring as refers to that barcode. And fifthly, these were the same forms transmitted to the National Tallying Center and inspected by all parties prior to the declaration on the 11th. But to come back to the question your ladyship asks about the 6 ballot papers, it is indeed correct that the format of voting is that you're given all 6 votes, and you walk into your booth and you take them. Now, the regulations, however, make provision for an item known as a stray ballot. There are many ballots that end up in the wrong ballot box. The regulations call them stray ballots. These are to be distinguished from a rejected ballot from a spoiled ballot. The same regulations require that the presidential election be counted first And so that by the time the results are being streamed onto our screens and being counted, all the other stray ballots have not yet been counted because they're in the other boxes.
Mr. Macharia,
Yes, Your Ladyship.
you're making the assumption that the voter votes for whatever candidate it is they want.
Yes,
And when putting, and that's an assumption,
yes,
when putting their ballot box in their ballot papers in the box
yes,
for the candidate they have voted for,
yes.
they would put all 6?
No.
That's the only way
Yes,
a stray ballot would arise. A stray ballot is one
yes,
which is put in the wrong box.
correct.
So even though it is correctly marked,
Yes,
it is dropped in the wrong box.
correct.
My question is this:
Yes,
where a candidate, where a voter collects the 6 ballots,
yes,
because the assumption is we will be given all 6,
yes, you're given all 6.
and you want to vote for only one candidate,
Yes.
where do the other 5 ballot papers go? It's a very simple question.
That's what I answered, Your Ladyship. That the law, and I think the regulations actually make it quite clear, that even having been given the 6, and even with the color coding that the ballot boxes have and the ballots themselves have, room is still created for what Your Ladyship correctly called the stray ballot, which is a correct ballot placed in the wrong box. Now, when you look at the regulations and you retire to do your ruling, you will find that those stray ballots are kept in a separate envelope by themselves, according to the rules. Yes.
Mr. Macharia,
Yes, my lord.
you are still not answering the question.
Yes.
You walk into a polling booth.
Yes.
You're given 6 ballot papers.
Yes.
So you decide, as you may decide,
Yes.
that you'll only vote for a presidential candidate.
Correct.
That leaves you with 5.
Yes.
Those 5
Yes.
are not stray.
No.
They are unused.
Yes.
You've been given 6,
Yes.
but you have elected to use only 1.
Yes.
That leaves you with 5.
Yes.
What we are asking,
Yes.
where do those 5 go? How are they accounted for? It's a simple question.
Oh, yes. And
They're not stray.
No, they're not stray.
They can only be stray if they have found themselves through in the wrong ballot box.
And that's the point.
So they're not stray. So you still remain with 5.
Yes.
Where do you put them? You carry them away?
No, 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 no.
How are they accounted for?
No, and that's the point I'm making. You vote. You vote for one, and vote for the second, and vote for the third. You have 6. You tick all of them, then you go. Let me explain again, as I understand the process.
Order. Order, please.
I could allow one of my colleagues from IEBC to do it, but I could. They are more conversant with that process, but yes, yes.
Please, my lord. The question that the court poses, my lord, the simple answer is this. There is a need, when you're given 6 ballot papers, you need to mark each and every one of those papers with your choice of the person that you're voting for. If, however, you elect to only vote for one person, the other ballot papers which do not indicate who you've chosen to vote for, if they are still put in the box at the point of counting, because you have not indicated who it is that you are voting for, becomes a rejected ballot. So that's a rejected ballot because it has not indicated who it is that you voted for. So among the rejected ballots, you will find the difference between the two. Because the purpose of a ballot is to indicate who you voted for. So if you don't indicate, it will most likely still be put in the ballot box, but since it will not have indicated who you voted for, it becomes a rejected ballot, not a stray one.
Very well. Okay, wind up, Mr.
And so, yes, my lord, and so that was the explanation for that one. The final point I think we wanted to make was a question raised there by our colleagues and brothers from the petitioners with the question of the votes for Nyando. That question, your ladyships and my lords, is dealt with in the affidavit of Winnie Gosho, and these were the 60,000 votes that my colleagues said were missed out of the Form 34C. The proviso to Regulation 87, Subregulation 4, entitles the second respondent, where the difference in votes not yet arrived does not make a difference, to still declare the result. The exact percentage of that vote from Nyando in Kisumu, sorry? Regulation 87. There's a proviso. This is the proviso to Regulation 87, Subregulation 4. The exact percentage difference that Nyando made, and it still counted, was 0.39% of that vote. And so the second respondent was entitled to do so. I end by calling your attention to an accusation made against the third respondent on the question of the President's delivery unit, or what's known as the delivery portal. Again, your ladyships and my lords, I call your attention to the affidavit of a gentleman known as Andrew Wakahio, signed and sworn in response to the affidavits of Dr. Nyangasi Oduwo and Olga Karani, and to paragraphs 100 to 120 or so of the affidavits of Winnie Gosho, and to the constitutional provisions set out therein as regards the duty of government to account and to deliver information to its people in a timely manner as to how it's spending their money and to what it is doing. Unless my lords and your ladyships have any further questions for us, we reiterate our plea to you to dismiss this petition and to do so with costs. Thank you very much.
Just a clarification. Just a clarification. Both Mr. Ngatia and Mr. Ahmed Nasir, you described what we last watched on the screen as a video. For the record, I don't think that is the description. Perhaps you are gray-haired and perhaps not .com. Perhaps the .com member of your team can properly describe what is it that was presented for the record.
That was
We offer the girl.
that was the graphical representation of the votes cast in all the positions that were sought for elections on the 8th of August. It was a graphical presentation.
And lady, that's why I safely referred you to the affidavit of the third respondent.
Mr. Ngatia, Mr. Benasir, Mr. Omogeni raised one question yesterday about Section 23 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, and he asked the court to declare that section unconstitutional. Would you like to address us on that? Because we won't have another chance.
Yes. Number one, my lord, that is not a request in the petition. Nowhere in the petition would you find a request like that. Number two, being a contestation regarding an act of parliament, it ought to originate at the High Court. It can't originate from the bar at the Supreme Court. It is one of the matters that ought to be litigated under Article 165, and it should be done in the... So without any exchange of pleadings, Omogeni, with all due respect, I think, was making a barb at it. It wasn't a serious request.
My Lord, can I just add one point that, I mean, a petition under Article 140 is a single subject issue. You are to determine whether the third respondent was validly elected or not. Unless, but my learned friend's reasons whether that section 23 is unconstitutional or not really does not fall within the confines or the contours of this case.
Thank you.
Okay, very well. We will adjourn and come back at... sorry? Yeah, Mr. Ranga.
Yes, my lords, when you made the order that the judiciary staff be increased to undertake the process of scrutiny, we had a word with the registrar just outside, together with, in the presence of my learned friends, Mr. Mwite and Mr. Karori. And he was telling us, yes, they have added staff, but now the challenge is that the agents, because the parties were restricted to 2 agents per party, per every party to this petition. So they cannot be able to execute that work as quickly as possible. And we thought that if the court could allow each party to have an extra 3 agents, then the work would go faster. In fact, from the registrar, he was saying he could even upscale it to 200 members of staff of the judiciary to undertake that exercise. But I must say from the bar, since that time, there's been a lot of improvement in the work that is going on, at least from our perspective. Sorry, I didn't consult you, but that's what they said.
What is the view of the other parties? Increasing the representatives to speed up the work?
Lord, I will indicate that in a moment, but can I also clarify that as far as the access is concerned, that has been resolved and the petitioner has been given access, and I think that the registrar of this honorable court should be able to bring a report within the timelines that the court gave. Access has been given. So that leaves us only with the issue of Forms 34As and Forms 34B.
Yes.
And because of your lordship's directions that the staff be increased, the staff were increased, but now because of that increase in staff, perhaps the parties should be given the opportunity to be represented by slightly more agents. And I think
about how many?
Five as suggested is good. Your lordships also asked a question, her leadership, the deputy president, on this unmarked. What happens to the 5 ballot papers if a voter decides to vote for only one candidate? And with your permission, I would wish my friend Karoli Kamau to perhaps draw the attention of the court to a regulation, section.
Yes, ladies, I think it's important to just show that even the regulations envisage the situation where a voter might not mark the paper. And Regulation 77, which deals with rejection of ballot papers, says that at the counting of votes at an election, any ballot paper, E, that is unmarked shall, subject to subregulation 2, be void and shall not be counted. So even the regulations envisage the possibility that a voter might not mark a ballot paper, and therefore that ballot paper shall be rejected and shall not be counted. So it actually envisaged it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. By consent of all the parties, we will vary our order 4 to allow each party to have 5 representatives. Is that okay, Mr. Orengo?
Yes.
That's okay, Mr. Muite?
Yes, it is. I don't know about the...
To speed up the
third respondent, I don't know what their views are. Yeah.
To speed up the process?
Yeah, we have no difficulty with that. It's good. It's fine.
That's fine. Okay, then we will adjourn for an hour. Come back at 3:30 and start with the interested party. You have 5 minutes. I thought, Mr. Kinyanjui, after lunch you can condense it to 5. Okay, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and then we will proceed. Thank you.